Hello, welcome to iExperts webinar today. Today we will discuss very important regulation and directives that is widely implemented inside the EU. Everybody that is working in certain industries, very important industries, must adhere by a way or another for this regulation, as long as you are working in the EU or providing a services for the EU. So today we will make some sort of mapping between DORA Act and the NIS2 directives to the ISO 27001 controls and requirements. Why we are doing that? Because we can say this is the best approach here to make some sort of mapping between the controls, between the what is needed here to be exist inside your organization, and must be implemented because it is regulation. It is not fun to not adhere for this regulation, and use here our current capabilities that we have inside the international standard, the ISO 27001. Yeah, it is in an international standard. There are a lot of here overlapped issues between ISO 27001. In addition to that, it's also some sort of overlapping between another controls in ISO 22301. 22301, I mean here, the business continuity management system. But today, we will focus on this controls that exist here in this part. When we say that we need here to make just the control mapping here between DORA and NIS2. During this webinar, the length of this webinar, it will be 45 minutes and another 15 minutes for your questions. So if you have any question, please try here to write it down, because and share it on the chat box so we can answer this after we finish here or on the right time during our in the last 15 minutes here during our questions and answer session. So let's start here with what we will cover here. We will give a brief, of course, about the NIS2 and DORA, the main pillars in both of them. In addition to that, we will go to the control mapping with gap level. What's the meaning of gap level here? I mean that we can say that we have certain controls can fulfill this requirement, but with a certain level. It can be low coverage, can be partially covered, it can be fully covered in this control. However, let's confirm that having ISO 27001 by default will not let you here being compliant with DORA and NIS2. There is here a great project you have to launch, and you have to understand here what is the expected results of this project with the meaning of the word to be used and to be launched inside your organization, to be mapped to NIS2 directives and DORA. Let's start with just giving a brief here about the directives or the controls that we have here. In NIS2, we have 7 security pillars inside this great requirements. First of all, governance and risk management, that is already covered in ISO 27001, not already covered to totally percent or 100%, but I mean here the framework itself is there. Number 10, some sort of mandatory security measures. I'm speaking here about some, it goes without saying, controls that we have to have, like multi-factor authentication, like the effective control, like the cryptography, like protecting here data. When you want here to make some sort, as we call it here, make some sort of mapping here between or transferring here some sort of PII, personal identifiable information, or any type of sensitive information, so it can be reflected on the privacy. Business continuity, disaster recovery, 10 controls. Again, in this webinar, we are not discussing here this controls in details, but we are trying here to make this mapping, as you will see. Number three, it is incident reporting. And we can stop here because also one of the main pillars inside DORA, it is incident reporting. Ahmed, what if I am in the exposure of NIS2 and DORA both together? What I have to do? Here we can say that the answer that it can be answered like the incidents that we have handled before 7 or 8 years ago, fine, when we were in the exposure of the GDPR and the PCI. Sometimes, and it happened before, sometimes there is some data compromised for one of the biggest airlines in the world in 2018. This 500,000 records, it was containing credit card. Now it is the exposure of the PCI, Payment Card Industry Data Security Standards. 48 hours to report. And it's also within the scope of the GDPR for the privacy, 72 hours to report. So at the end of the day, you must understand your exposure and you have to prepare manual playbook for the incident handling. Why? Because maybe you are in the exposure of this for here, I cannot say regulation because PCI, it's international standards, or we can call them compliance. One international, one industrial standard, the PCI, GDPR, DORA, NIS2, maybe I can be in the exposure of all of these three regulations and another industrial standard, all of them in one place, all of them requiring me to make incident reporting with a certain way. So at the end of the day, you have to make and create this playbook. But the concept of having incident handling, it is there. The concept of having a great life cycle here, a great planning here for your incident handling, it must be there. So remember, this is here our main part. In NIS2, one of the main parts that we have in NIS2 is to make incident reporting, and it is overlapped with DORA itself. Number 4, another overlapping with DORA. Supply chain security. However, in DORA, we are requiring to have not just a security, full risk assessment for your third party, full management for your third party, any ICT service provider, any company that will provide us with a service, managed service, software, hardware, any supply chain. In the concept of DORA, it is you have to perform a full risk management for them. Here, it is we have certain controls, certain requirements in the agreement itself. So maybe for the sake of the NIS2, we need to make some updates for our agreements with our third parties. What if some persons asked me before, what if the third party refused to agree here on this new agreement or something like that? Frankly, we cannot accept something like that. What is the meaning of rejecting to accept the law? It doesn't make any sense. Or this vendor will not be able to provide this service in the EU anymore. So you have to change your vendor, or you will find this is the maturity that happened with the GDPR. This is the maturity that happened here with everything before that. At the end of the day, you will find here your we can call it here the service provider themselves. They will try here to raise a flag here. Hey, we are NIS2 compliant. We are DORA compliant. Let's try to use our service. So this is the maturity of the market, and it will take time, and we understand that. But we have no tolerance to work with somebody in the supply chain, some suppliers that will not adhere for our, we call it here regulation, because the NIS2 is directive. It will be reflected in a form of regulation here. When we go to pillar number 5, it is the business continuity and the crisis management. In the business continuity and the crisis management, really here we will focus on the backup and many here business continuity testing here. And we have here some sort of coordination here between the AU organizations, as well as it also exists in DORA. Vulnerability handling and disclosure. It's extremely important here to handle and patch your vulnerabilities here on time. Remember that we have something, we call it here Patch Tuesday. Patch Tuesday, try here to focus here on applying your patches here. This, if you establish this great patch management and vulnerability management here, you will fulfill NIS2, you will fulfill requirements from DORA, ISO 27001. You will protect yourself. You will try here to work in a proactive way before being attacked. And remember what happened in WannaCry 2017 in 12th of May, when a lot of persons, a lot of companies, a lot of organizations got hacked just because that patch got released in 25 of March 2017, 25 of March. And on 12 of or 13 of March, 14 of March, around 58 days, 14 of March 2017, critical patch lead to RCE, remote code execution, and the people and a lot of organizations didn't apply this patch until 12th of May, around 58 days of delay of implementing critical patch. So it lead to WannaCry. By having this failure, it goes without saying that you are protecting your organization in a very proactive way, in a very comprehensive way. So this is how you can make this vulnerability handling and disclosure. Finally, supervisory and enforcement. At the end of the day, there are some penalties, heavy penalties here in NIS2. It's around here 10 millions of euros here, or 2% of the global turnover. Can you imagine the 2% of global turnover for cloud service provider that is working worldwide or something like that? This is, there is a lot of stories here. When you go inside DORA, inside the NIS2, you can find it is law crafted here by professional, crafted by subject matter experts. So you can find here that it is heavy penalties. It is not a good choice for not being compliant. So these are the main 7 pillars in NIS2. Let's go to the 5 main pillars inside DORA. First of all, risk management. And if you start to read DORA itself, DORA asked you to have sound, comprehensive risk management framework. One person asked me in some of my lectures before, 1 month ago, it is mandatory in DORA to assign risk owner for the risk for each risk? Yes or no? It's mandatory for DORA. So I can say loud and clear, yes, it is required. Where is this clearly stated in DORA? It is not clearly stated in DORA that you have risk owner, but in DORA, we asked you to have sound, comprehensive, known, a great framework for risk management. And across all the risk management frameworks I know, 27005, 31000, even NIST, 837, all of them, they asked you in a very clear way to assign risk owner. You understand me? That you have to have a great and a comprehensive risk management framework. And we understand here that it goes without saying for you as a CISO or information security manager or compliance manager or data protection manager, data protection officer, that you have to have in hand a great risk management framework. If you don't have risk management framework in your hand, I think it will be risky a little bit, because you will not be able to prioritize, you will not be able to manage well. And so this risk management, it goes without saying to have this risk management here, and this exists across many articles from article number 5 to article number 16. Then we asked you here to have incident management and reporting, classification, recording for all incidents, starting from the minor to the major, but you will report the major. And on voluntary basis, you have to make some sort of, we call it here, cyber risk. Cyber risk. On voluntary basis, if you notice cyber risk in your threat intelligence department, you, on voluntary basis, you have to share with the competent authority in your country. Competent authority, we will speak about competent authorities, like PAFN, like the central bank in the Netherlands. And so it's different according to the sector, because DORA here, it's addressed for the financial sector. Here, The digital operational testing here, we are speaking here about certain type of penetration testing, certain type of something we call here threat-led penetration testing with a specific sequence taking up to 9 months of testing. It must be completed every 3 years. Ahmed, I am fintech, very small fintech. So I have to do this one? No, DORA including here some exclusion here for the we call it here small companies, medium companies. Fine. So they call it here micro enterprises, small enterprises, medium enterprises. There is a definition for each one, and in DORA itself, you can read here an exception here that we made for this organization, but this one can be happened across many service providers together and so on. So this is here the Digital Operational Resilience Act. In addition to that, number 4, the third-party management, the third-party risk management here. I think it goes without saying that we have to control all of our service provider, and DORA itself, it is asking all service provider to be compliant also with DORA. So it is from the two sides that you have to have the service provider compliant, and you have to have to see all the information security, or as we call it here, information security service provider or technology provider be compliant with DORA. Finally, information sharing and arrangement. This is something will be happened across the lead overseers and the competent authority on all organizations to make some sort of auditing and sharing the information. That sanctions and incident reporting. Remember, in incident reporting in DORA, you have to report initial report within 4 hours once starting from once you classify the incident as a major. Ahmed, it can be false positive. Let's report this. Then you can say false positive. But it is not good to not report, to make this report on time. Then 72 hours starting from the time of the reporting. So now, assuming 3 hours passed from the incident, so after 3 hours from classifying it major, you reported. Starting from this point, you will count 72 hours. Starting from this 72 hours, you have to count 30 days to give that final report. And DORA here set certain requirements in each one, certain requirement here in each report, certain requirements here in each, we call it here, the form or the data that you have to upload in this report. For NIS2, in the early warning, we call it here early warning in the first 24 hours. And if there is here you got here any some sort of incident within 72 hours, this is the full notification. Fine. And also it's including certain parts or certain here information that you have to do and you have to share during this incident. And the final report within here within 30 days. Remember here that the scope here of DORA, it is addressed the financial sector only. Financial sector here, we have in the EU around 23,000 of financial institutes. 23,000 of financial institutes, of financial companies, payment gateways, e-money institute, insurance companies, investments firm, credit institutes. We have a lot of companies. In addition to that service providers nowadays, the cloud computing, the service provider, they are integral part because fintech, financial technology, it's working on technology. It goes without saying that we have to have a great, we call it here, enhancement for the service that we are getting from our service providers. So at the end of the day, they are a part of the DORA, of the scope. Ahmed, I think maybe we can make some sort of mapping later between DORA and PCI. I think this would be a great point. Why? Because both of them are exist and are addressed for the financial sector here. So at the end of the day, this is DORA, and we have here the NIS2 as well. But NIS2 here, we have around 18 critical sectors, not financial, but including the financial. 18 critical sectors, from medium to large organization. And there is here definition, what is the meaning of medium here? What's the meaning of large here? By the turnover and by the amount of employees. So you can review this. Around here, we have 18 sector, Ahmed? Yes, including the financial, by the way. The health sector, energy, transportation, anything that will affect people's life. Anything, all you can find all of these sectors here. If we got any problem here in any one of these sectors, I think it will be something catastrophic for the society. It can be something catastrophic for the people that are living in this city. If they have a problem in the energy, transportation, banking service, financial, assuming here that you will, in one country, fine, nobody will be able to access the payments gateways or the payment applications or banking. So I think this is catastrophic, and this is something can be very harmful for any economic. So these are the scopes of both of them. Remember here also we have some sort of terminologies in DORA and NIS2. This does not exist in ISO 27001. In DORA, you have some organization, we call them lead overseers. Why? Mainly we have 3 lead overseers in DORA. First of all, the European Banking Authority for all banking sector. Second here, EUBA. EUBA here for insurance. For insurance here, it's lead overseer for all the organizations that are working in the insurance and providing insurance service and something like that. ISMA or European Securities and Market Authorities. This is for the any capital market or any critical here service that we are providing here in the stock markets and the investments. So we can call them, they are the 3 lead overseers. Fine. And they are working closely with the competent authorities. What's the meaning of competent authority? In every country, we have national competent authority. We can call them like we call them in PAFM here in Belgium, for example, like the Central Bank of the Netherlands. It can be different from country to country. Some countries, they have one organization. Some countries, they have 2 or 3 competent authorities according to the sector. It is banking, insurance, or financial market. While NIS2, we have the National Competent Authority. Fine. This is the NCA. NCA here, we call it here National Competent Authority. This is, for example, like the BSI, the Federal Information Security Office in Germany, ANSI in France, NCSC, National Cybersecurity Center in the UK, NCSC, National Cybersecurity Center in the Netherlands. CERT, it can be part. For example, in the UK, we have the CERT, it's a part of the NCSC. CERT is a computer incident response team. They are the persons, the technical persons that will make the investigation, that will make here the incident, gives the incident response for the national issues that can reflect on the national security. And the NIS Corporation Group, it is a group here, fine, for the supervisory authorities here to implement or guide these directives, because we will have NIS2 take care. NIS2, it's directive, it's not act. It is not law. So each country will develop its own law based on this directive here. And frankly, and finally, the European here cyber crisis here relation organization network. It is here a coordination here between all the information between all the EU political level. And don't forget here the ENISA fund that is providing us with a lot of resources and working as a great organization, cybersecurity centralized agency for all the EU. So now we know the authorities here in each organization. Let's start here with DORA mapping. We will make some sort of mapping between these 5 pillars and the articles. This is the review of the 5 pillars. Fine. Number 1, risk management, incident management, digital operational resilience testing, third-party risk management and information sharing. Let's start with the incident management here, as we call it here. We can call it here the risk management. You can find, starting from article number 5 to article number 13, we have some certain controls. You can fulfill all of these controls using the controls itself inside the ISO 27001. Why? In the governance, we have leadership, we have policy. Risk management framework, remember, 6.1.2, this is asking you to have framework, written process for risk assessment and written process for risk treatment, 6.1.3. This in plan, P stand for plan. Let's do here, fine. This is the, for the risk management as well here, we have in 8.2 and 8.3, fine, the result of the risk assessment and the result of the risk treatment, plan, do. So again, when I speak with you about framework, I need a great framework and the implementation of this framework. So also here, the requirement for the asset, we have also assets inventory, we have information classification, acceptable use policy. For the protection and the prevention, we have certain controls for secure authentication here, anti-malware, security, network segregation. For the detection, also, we have here logging, monitoring activities. We have clock synchronization with one of your any here, you can make clock synchronization here with your router, with a university or something like that, something yours, but all systems must be synchronized together. And also we have here in ISO 27001 22 controls, you can find here also the incident management, fine, planning is the response. We have a section for incident management inside ISO 27001. In addition to that, you can also go for incident management guidelines, information security incident management guidelines in 27035. In 27035, this is the guideline from the family of the ISO 27001 for the ISO 27 for the incident management, ISO 27035. So, but take care here, this is partially gap. Why? Because DORA require here board approval for the ICT framework and personal liability from the upper management. So we need some sort of customization, partially gap here. We can call it here partially covered. Here in the second one here, yes, it is, we are covering here the asset management, the asset identification, but remember here in DORA, we can call it here, we need here some sort of we call it here explicitly writing and make mapping for the ICT here with something we call it here in DORA, something named critical and important business functions. This mapping here is specialized in DORA. So if you have your assets inventory, information inventory, we need here to add some columns. Is this asset here mapped to business? We call it here critical or important business function. If you have something like that, so please here try to make this mapping and try here to make here this mapping. So now we can call it here also partially covered. Low gap here, this is here, almost we are totally aligned, almost we are totally there, fine, between the controls of the protection and the prevention. It's almost totally required or totally here covered without here any extra requirements. When we go to the detection, remember there is some extra requirements in the DORA because it's required here specific threat detection here. We call it here thresholds and anomaly detection mechanisms. Why? Because this is related to the financial sector. So maybe we will ask you here for more requirements for the logging here for the threat intelligence. What is the definition we call it here in DORA? Something we call it here cyber risk. Cyber risk. This is not exist totally in ISO 27001, but we can call it here, it is partially covered. When we go to the the last part here, the response recovery and learning, we can call it here. It is also partially covered because the backups, the redundancy almost there, but DORA here, there is here certain target for your recovery time objective, recovery point objective in the financial sector, and also certain testing here for your backup and DR. This is, don't forget, the DORA, it is digital operational resilience, here, including all the CIA, confidentiality, integrity, availability, digital resilience overall. So this is here the risk management. Number two, incident management. I can call that in the first part in incident management process requirement in article number 17, it is almost covered in ISO 27001. So we can say that both almost the same here, fine, covering all the requirements here of DORA, fine, but we need you here to just try here to review this and add the flavor of DORA requirements, fine, for according to your industry as well, fine, for your organization, and in the light of the guidance from the competent authorities in your country. Incident classification. Extremely important in incident classification here that, yes, we have here a gap here, which means that we need to add extra requirement for DORA, because DORA here classifies the incident as a major and non-major. So non-major, you can call it here, for example, medium, low, you can classify it, but here for the major, we have a specific criteria to follow. We have to announce the measure, fine, within a specific time frame. This does not exist in ISO 27001. However, if you tried here to understand this part, well, you will be able to make this mapping in a very easy way. Remember, again, we have a gap here, but it is not equivalent 100% ISO 27001. You can say when we say high gap here, which is that you need some sort of customization, which is mean it is not there. If it is not there, I will not write a control here. I will not write the control name here. You understand me? So at the end of the day, as long as there is a controls, so there is a mapping. But here we are speaking about the level of this control. Here was the coverage level of this control for the requirement of DORA. So the third one, regulatory reporting and authorities, there is also no clear requirements, fine, for this regulatory reporting here or specific time frame to do it. Because, as you know, ISMS, it is international one. It can be customized for any organization. But DORA required 44 hours here early warning, 72 intermediate here, reporting 30 days for the financial report. For the third part, hey, the centralized reporting and how we can here share something together. We have a great control on contact with special interest group inside ISO 27001. We can use this controls 5.6 here to fulfill the requirement of DORA, because DORA here make a harmonization here for the all the community of the EU organization, that we have specific here under the competent authority requirements as well. Fine, so we can share information on voluntary basis like the cyber risk. For example, certain IPs are making a huge phishing campaigns on the payments gateway here in Belgium. So I will share this with all the organizations that is working here across the EU, not just Belgium. Finally, the last part here, voluntary threat notification here, this is the threat intelligence. It's a part of ISO 27001 to have threat intelligence, reporting of IS events, contact with a special interest group again. So at the end of the day, all of this covered in ISO 27001, except DORA here, we are saying that this is the voluntary notification for what we call it here, significant cyber threat on voluntary basis. And I recommend for you to do this one here. Pillar number three, it is the digital resilience and testing. Yes, we have here the general testing requirement, and at the end of the day, in ISO 27001, in 8.29, we asked you to have some sort of security testing, some sort of monitoring and the measurement for and the analysis here. All of this are ISO 27001. So at the end of the day, in DORA, it's required formal annual testing program cover all the ICT programs that you have. So it's extremely important to know this in DORA. While the testing of ICT tools and systems, remember that extremely important here, I think that we can make the laser pointer. And here, in these controls that we have, I think it is extremely important also to understand that the vulnerability management, we said, it goes without saying, it's protecting us, helping us, enhancing all the information, and enhancing here the part that we will understand in the, we understand it goes without saying that as long as you are patching your vulnerabilities, you are protecting yourself, you are working in a very proactive way. So it goes without saying that we have certain requirements in vulnerability management here, configuration management, of course, in matching with, in coordination with change management. Change management, no configuration management without change management. In addition to that, the internal audit as well. Fine, so 9.2 from the requirements. So at the end of the day, here, yes, we have low coverage because DORA here requires specific type of testing. We call it here threat-led penetration testing here. However, we can call here the vulnerability assessment, default vulnerability assessment, the open source analysis for the tools. Here we have certain requirements for the open source requirement, starting from the license itself, starting from and from the code holes and so on. And all of this we can call it here as a covered one. But the full testing, we can call it, we can speak later in the next pillar on this one. Threat-led penetration testing, there is high gap here because this is the one that we said that there is here, according to Article 26 here, we have to make threat-led penetration testing, fine, according to the TIPR EU here requirements, that is make here 3 phases for the penetration testing, the initial, during testing, and the post-testing, fine. It can be very long here process, around 9 months. Fine, so it will be listed here. The requirements of the testers here, the competency here, it's as a requirement of the information security management system. It can solve a lot of problems here because we can call it here that we need the competent persons everywhere. In the penetration testing, in the network systems, in the network management, in the network administration, I mean system administration and so on. So here we can call that we have really here a gap. But remember that ISO 27001, they have a great control, fine, and screening and how we can manage the supplier relationship here. Remember this 5.9. If you implemented it, you will fulfill a great part, the next pillar here of DORA here. But DORA here required here specific accreditation here requirements for this TLPT. Fine. However, they didn't state it must be by IS2 or ISACA or eLearn or whoever. No, but they set some certain of requirements to be there. So this is here can be covered. Number 4 here, the third-party risk management. Remember, in third-party risk management here, this is, remember, 5.19. 5.19, it will stay with us. It's a great part. Frankly, 2021. Usually when we go to any DORA implementation, any DORA consultancy, we focus on 19, 20, 21. 19, information security and supplier relationship. 20, it is addressing the information security in the supplier agreement. And finally, 21 here, the supply chain security. All of this behind the monitoring. 22, monitoring and review for the supplier service. It is not just we sign the contract and let's make a great announcement, let's celebrate and have no monitor here. But here, we have to make this monitoring. Again, all of this, it's covered in ISO 27001, I can say that all of this controls, all of these requirements, the due diligence, the contractual obligations, the critical important designation, the subcontracting, the intergroup ICT, also the strategy to have here, we call it here exit strategy that you have to develop in your contract, JML, joiner, mover, lever, joiner, mover, lever, instructions and manual and so on. So at the end of the day, it is required now in DORA in Article 34 to Article 37 here. So you have to have exit plan. You have to write it down. You have to agree before start the service delivery, before start contracting, it must be there. So we can say everything is covered here, but remember here in DORA, maybe it's required here extra certain requirements in the contract itself, in the subcontract restrictions. And DORA also require formal designation here for, as we remember, fine, we said DORA define at the beginning of DORA project, we define something, we call it here critical important business function. You have to make this listing. You have to make this definition. As long as we are working on this project, we have to keep in mind where is my critical important functions. Mapping in the assets, mapping in the vulnerable assets management, mapping in the vulnerability management, mapping before outsource. Makes sense. Makes sense. I will outsource now something, we call it here critical function for me. So I have to make a great due diligence. It's not fun. I have to respect here very important part, and that we call it here in my contract. So at the end of the day, there is formal designation here for this part before you make outsourcing. Yeah, it goes without saying again. I outsource critical function to provider it name X and not important functions for another one it name Y. Again, it goes without saying that I will focus here more requirements, more security controls, more monitoring on my critical function, that outsourced to the we call it here A or X here provider. So when we go to the next part, it is here we can call here also certain notification, and the mechanism must be written in the contract also, and the exit strategy. DORA also require here this to be crystal clear, fine, and how you can move between the third parties, to other service provider or go who or something like that. For the lead overseer here, third party for this pillar here, we can call it here. We have around we call it here around 7 articles related to the third party and related to the this is the lead over for the lead overseer itself. So we can call it here. There is here a great gap between ISO 27001. However, this part here, it is mapped to each country because, again, DORA requires this requirement from the overseers themselves, not from you as an entity. So all of this requirements, it will be managed by the European Banking Authority and the EUBA and the ISMA here. Final part here, the information sharing, as long as we have a great controls in ISO 27001, the threat intelligence and the contact of a special here with a special here interest group and reporting of security events. All of this controls helped me a lot to make here that it is goes without saying that I have to make some sort of information sharing. But remember, the DORA requirement, it's partially covered because DORA requirement require here certain requirements or certain here, we call here type of reporting for specific groups. So this is the information sharing. It is covered, but DORA here has specific here formal way to make this recommendation. So this is here the ISO 27001 mapping to DORA. Remember here, this is here an article, and we can share this one with you at the end of the class, at the end of the webinar here. So we can call we can say that we can share this one with you. It can show you here the mapping between both of them. And this is a summary between all of them, between all the articles. So yes, we have here around, we can call here that around 60 to 65% of the DORA requirements, it's covered. Usually I say it's around 70%. So here we can call it here 70%. It's very important part, and very important part. We can call it here if you made this mapping. And also the conclusion here that we have here the strong coverage here in the from pillar 1, from pillar 5 to in the proceeds, in the supplier security, but incident reporting timeline, there's certain requirements for DORA. The type of the TLPT test, the threat-led penetration testing, it's certain requirements from DORA. And also the lead overseer here requirements, it is certain requirements from DORA. So this is DORA. Now we can go to the 7 pillars of the NIS2. Remember, these are the 7 pillars of the NIS2. So here in the first pillar here, again, you can find some parts it's repeated here with DORA, some controls it's repeated here with ISO 27001. So you can find here that management body accountability, it is exists, of course, here is a leadership, but again, in NIS2, it's mandate here specific approval for the security measure and also getting the liability and established personal liability, as we call it here. Mandatory for cybersecurity training here, it is exist to have competent, we are asking you to have competent person there. But again, and we have awareness here, 7.3, remember the resources, and all of the 5 supporting here, it is in number 5. So 7.2, 7.3, the awareness here, and the education and the training as well, they are required. But there is a small gap that NIS2 mandate that management body members personally attend cybersecurity training. No, so in ISO 27001, it's just awareness, not training. Risk management measure, all the requirement of risk management measure it's clear, but again here, it is in NIS2 required here, specific here, technical and operational here controls to be there, and just to make a mapping here to this directive. And finally here, proportionality act here, or the part here, it is existed, by the way, in DORA. Proportionality act, or proportionality here concept here, that we are making mapping between the size and the requirement of this organization. So we can call it here, if this organization is a very small organization, so we will not require here all these heavy requirements. So we understand here this principle, and this principle it exists here. So however here, this is NIS2 reference for something we call it here state-of-art cybersecurity standards. So and making here some, we call it here essential and important classification for any regulation that is exist, or for the requirements or for the controls itself. So at the end of the day, you can say that this part, it's great and already covered in ISO 27001 with a great part, with a great percentage. So we can call it here, this part is already covered here with partially covered. And when we go to the mandatory security controls, starting from risk analysis, incident handling, business continuity, DR, supply chain, secure acquisition and development, we can call it is almost 90% is covered. Except here in the supply chain requirements, in NIS2, we are asking you to perform specific risk assessment for the supply chain. It does not exist explicitly in the ISO 27001. Rather than that, you can call it here, it is almost mapped for this requirement. In addition to that, the same can fulfill DORA here. Yeah, I'm dreaming with making some sort of mind map, one mind map here between the controls of ISO 27001 and DORA and NIS2. In addition to that, we can add another ISO standard. So if you implemented this ISO standard well, you will be compliant with DORA and NIS2. The third pillar here in the NIS2, find the security measure. Find this, we still in the security measure here, find because it's including also effective assessment, the cyber hygiene training, find cryptography, encryption, HR here, of course, encryption, it's a part of the cryptography. HR security access, and of course we have the HR requirements before employment, during employment, after the employment in ISO 27001. Multi-factor authentication and secure communication. All of this are covered here. However, we have something sort, we call it here basic cyber hygiene practice here. It's a baseline, we call it here, how you can make strong password management, regular patching, certain requirements, extra requirement for DORA, for NIS2, and also for the key management. ENISA here has its specific approved cryptography. However, in ISO 27001, it's very wide. We are not asking you to have certain requirements for this cryptography. In addition to that, also the NIS2 has certain requirement for the encryption and the communication. So NIS2 mandate secured emergency communication mapping here or mechanism. So I can say that number 2 here, the mandatory security measure here, it is almost covered with a very high percentage, almost up to 90%, 85%. So this is very important. The third pillar here, it is the incident reporting. And really here we have a gap. Why gap? It is another incident reporting framework? No, it is the same. I can use, Ahmed, 27035, the incident handling the requirement, the guidelines. Yes, you can do that. Yes, you can do that, but remember that in NIS2 we have certain requirements, and again remember that we have discussed this in the timeline. The timeline here, NIS2 make it's obligatory for you to make certain reporting with the international authorities. Fine, has no concept of mandatory external authority notification timelines. So also, if it's something related to the privacy or something like that, fine, we have almost the same timeline. So at the end of the day, we have the regulatory obligation here to submit a final report here. It is not exist totally in ISO 27001. So there is certain requirements. For example, here there is, for example, when we call it here significant incident, I am asking you, according to NIS2, to provide me with a specific information. This information not mandatory inside ISO 27001. So when I list this notification, when I list here this, we call it here requirements to be there, to be exist inside ISO 27001, to be exist in NIS2 here, it is not really here mandatory in ISO 27001. So because of that, we call it here, there is a high gap between both. So yes, the significant incident criteria, you have to tell me number of users affected, the duration, geographical spread, the economic impact, the data loss. All of this are not mandatory in ISO 27001, but we can make the customization. We can here make the customization because we are covered here all the controls, but we need here certain customization. Pillar number 4, the supply chain security. Again, it's very similar to the supply chain, very similar, but at the end of the day, remember that in NIS2, we have certain technical requirements. For example, the 5G supply chain and the critical technology. We have definition for the critical technology. So this is a great gap here on this part because you need here to adhere for the EU 5G, we call here toolbox methodology, and to make sure that you will depend on this technology. If you will depend on the 5G technology in your communication, if you are power plant or something like that. So we have certain requirements from the provider. Don't tell me I will depend on just the British Telecom or Vodafone. No, take care. Maybe we will ask you here. We are asking you about the dependency, not just one of them. And we have certain requirements in each one. And remember also as well, the state actor for risk assessment for geopolitical here part. So at the end of the day, remember that we have here, we call here threat dimension beyond the standard risk. So at the end, we can call this part we need here certain level of threat definitions, threat identification for the sake of the NIS2 according your industry as well. So at the end of the day, we can call the requirements here. Yes, it's required, but we still need to make some sort of mapping between both. For the business continuity crisis management, pillar number 5 in NIS2, we can say that it's covered with a very high level. The gap is very low or partially exists between the controls of backup, disaster recovery, crisis management. That's crisis management required in DORA, by the way. Business continuity and DR testing. We can say that it's almost the same in the backup or the controls of ISO 27001 for backup management, business continuity, DR testing. It is almost here. It is almost this controls. It is more than enough for me. But for the controls of disaster recovery and the crisis management, remember that NIS2 require here sector specific at each sector here. RPO target, this does not exist in ISO, so you need here to fulfill this gap. In addition to the crisis management here, NIS2 require crisis management procedures to be coordinated here with the European here, we call it here European Crisis, National Crisis Management Framework. Fine. That is, you have to adhere for this framework and the cross-border regulatory. So you have to adhere for this part. It is, again, some sort of customization for your great business continuity. Again, this part also can be fulfilled by your controls in 22301. So I think it can be more than perfect here. The pillar number 6 here, it is the vulnerability handling and disclosure. Vulnerability handling, we can say it's totally covered in the Article 21, Section 2, the entity vulnerability management. But when we go to coordinated vulnerability disclosure, NIS2 here, we need just here to make some sort of coordination here, and we have here to make this disclosure here within specific time frame. So because it's something legal a little bit, not exist in ISO 27001. And we have a high gap between article number 12 and article number 25, the ENISA here, European Space Database Vulnerability, and the cybersecurity certification schema that is not defined 100% yet. So at the end of the day, here we have in NIS2, we have a high gap because this ENISA here data or the ENISA requirements does not exist in ISO 27001. So you need to do this exercise. In addition to the EU cybersecurity certification scheme, I think it's covering here the cybersecurity requirement for supplier agreement here, and also for the covering monitoring. And this part, I think it's extremely important to be there and to be managed. So it will be a part of your scope, fine, to be covered during NIS2. Finally, and this is the last part here, pillar number 7, it is that supervisory and enforcement. Again, it is requirements stated here, requirements, no controls. This is here totally gap, no control here, fine. And this one, it is just the internal only for pending here infrastructure administrative fines here, cross-border justification and pay here review. All of these requirements, it's almost not totally mapped in ISO 27001. I can say no control 100% fine can be exist. So this legal part, it is a legal part. It's almost out of the supervisory, almost out of the mapping here between both. This is here some sort of mapping between the organizational control technology and the requirements and the people, physical technologists here, and between the NIS2 and ISO 27001. I think it will be very important for you to know this. In addition to that, also, the gap analysis, we can call it here also around 65% of the technical requirements in DORA is covered in ISO 27001. So I think this is very, very high percentage of coverage. I think it's very important here to mention clearly that, again, the security measures, the business continuity, vulnerability management is there. We have strong coverage also for supplier security at the entity level, partially covered for the NIS2 enhancement, and for certain requirement for the database for the vulnerabilities here, national database vulnerability for ENISA or something like that. We have also a great gap between the timelines that is required for incident reporting and it is accepted, and also for the supervisory and enforcement part. So this was the mapping between both. I hope we have shared, I think we didn't get 45 minutes. I think that we have consumed almost 1 hour. So I suggest here, if you have any question or something like that, to take it now. Thank you very much for attending this webinar, and I will be very happy to hear any of your questions. Remember that we are inviting you all the time to register here on our webinars to get notification for your next webinars. Let's register on iExperts weekly webinar on our website, iexperts.uk. So at the end of the day, we are very happy here to have any question if you have any question. And finally, you can contact us for any questions that you have even after this webinar. I would like to say thank you very much and thanks for attending today. I got a question here. How can an organization avoid duplication of effort when complying with multi-data regulation? By making this great mapping, Mr. Hamid. I think making this great mapping here between the ISO 27001 and using the same controls to be customized here on many regulation. So using one control, I can make mapping between 4 regulation. So mapping here, it is the key. Mapping, it is the key. I hope I answered your question, Mr. Hamid. See you next time. Thank you very much. It was my pleasure to attend this classroom with you, this webinar with you. So thanks and see you in next webinars. Thank you. Bye-bye.